The phone rang at 11:47 p.m. At my age, late-night calls only bring bad news. Hospitals, police, emergencies you pray never reach your door. I stared at the glowing screen, my son Daniel's name flashing against the darkness of my bedroom. We hadn't spoken properly in months. I answered with a tight voice. "Daniel, is everything all right?" There was a pause on the other end. Not the warm kind. The cold, deliberate kind, like someone choosing their words carefully without concern for how they would land. "I'm getting married tomorrow," he said. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. "Tomorrow," I repeated, sitting up. "Daniel, that's wonderful news. Why didn't you?" "Listen," he cut in, "I don't have much time." The way he said it made my stomach twist. "Your house has been sold," he continued. "And the car too. Everything's taken care of. I just wanted to let you know. Bye." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, waiting for it to ring again, waiting for laughter, a correction, a cruel joke revealed. Nothing. The house was silent, except for the ticking of the old clock Daniel had given me years ago, back when he still smiled at me like I was his world. That house wasn't just brick and wood. It was where I brought him home from the hospital, where I taught him to ride a bike on the cracked driveway, where his mother and I danced barefoot in the kitchen before cancer took her too young. After she died, the house became everything, my anchor, my proof that I still belonged somewhere. When my health began to fail, Daniel convinced me to sign some papers. "It's just for convenience, Dad," he said gently. "In case anything happens, I'll help manage things." I trusted him. Why wouldn't I? He was my son. The next morning I drove, my car to the house, half expecting it to vanish like a bad dream. But there it was, real standing, and on the front lawn a bright red sold sign. My hands shook as I pulled into the driveway. Before I could even get out, a man in a suit approached me. "Sir, I'm sorry," he said politely. "This property closed yesterday. You'll need to vacate." "I live here," I whispered. He handed me a folder. Inside were documents with my signature at the bottom, signatures I didn't remember signing, buried beneath legal language I'd never understood. My son's name was everywhere. I felt something break inside me, not loudly but completely. I had nowhere to go. Daniel's number went straight to voicemail. I left message after message, my voice cracking more each time. "Son, please call me back. There must be a mistake." There was. By evening, a locksmith arrived to change the locks. I packed what I could into 2 suitcases, photos, clothes, a watch that belonged to my father. I slept that night in the car until a tow truck arrived. "Vehicle's already transferred," the driver said apologetically. "I'm just doing my job." I stood on the sidewalk as the car disappeared down the street, taking the last piece of my old life with it. I spent the next few weeks in a shelter. You learn a lot about silence there, about how quickly the world forgets you, about how betrayal hurts more than hunger. One afternoon, a volunteer named Mrs. Alvarez sat beside me during lunch. "You look like a man with a story," she said softly. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, then placed a hand on mine. "Sometimes," she said, "children think inheritance means entitlement." Her words stayed with me. That night I called an old friend, Robert, a retired lawyer I hadn't spoken to in years. He listened carefully, then said something that made my heart pound. "Did you ever finalize your will?" "Yes," I said, "years ago." "Good," he replied, "because what your son did might not be the end of the story." We worked quietly. While Daniel was honeymooning, posting smiling photos online, basking in congratulations, I was uncovering truths. The documents he'd used, legally shaky, the will still ironclad. And there was one thing Daniel didn't know. Years ago, after selling a piece of inherited land, I had placed the money into a trust, one he couldn't touch unless certain conditions were met. Conditions he had just violated. 3 months later, Daniel called me. His voice sounded different, smaller. "Dad, I need to talk." I met him in a cafe. He looked tired. His wedding ring gleamed under the lights like a trophy already losing its shine. "The money's frozen," he said quietly. "The house sale is under review. The lawyer says you knew." "I trusted you," I replied calmly. He looked down. I thought you'd be fine. You don't need much. I'm starting a life." "And I was ending mine," I said. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, not of losing money, but of losing the story he told himself about being a good son. I didn't scream, I didn't curse. I simply stood up. "I don't want revenge," I said. "I want dignity." I walked away. Today, I live in a small apartment near a park. I volunteer at the shelter where I once slept. I've made peace with what happened, not because it was right, but because carrying bitterness was costing me the life I had left. Daniel sends messages sometimes, apologies, explanations. I read them. I don't always reply, because some lessons arrive late at night in one cold sentence, and once learned, they can never be undone.